clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us on SST, on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. We got a great one for you today as the Knicks win again. They can't stop winning right now. January was good. February off to a good start after a back-and-forth slight comeback win over the Indiana Pacers. We're going to talk Knicks and their resurgence, or just should call it a surgence at this point, their conference championship odds and their kind of path to making it deep in this playoffs. And then we're going to do something really fun with our guy, Cody O'Connor. We love doing drafts. We've done it preseason for NFL, for NBA. Why not do it midseason for NBA? We are going to draft NBA contenders with Cody O'Connor, trying to figure out who has the best chances to win the damn thing and go through it. 5 picks each, 10 teams total to see who picks the best squad with the likelihood to win it all. So joining me today, as he has basically every Thursday, every week since football started and before that as well, Cody O'Connor. What's up, bro?
What's up, my man? You know, it's tough, Pete. I don't want to sit here and complain about talking football. I don't want it to sound like that. But it's been a little bit since we've got to chop it up about basketball, about hoops. And, you know, obviously we've still been in on the action, even though NFL is king and takes precedent, and rightfully so. But I'm excited to chop it up and talk a little hoops, man. I'm ready for it. Knicks look great tonight. Got to watch that one in full. And I'm even trying out this new gambling strategy. Strategically, the last couple nights I've tried this, and really liked it. I've really enjoyed it. I recommend it for other people. And I've tried winning for a change. I decided to go for winning, and it's way more fun. It's way better than losing. I don't know why I didn't think of this weeks ago in the drought that changed our group chat name. But a couple nights in a row back in the green feels amazing. Feels like a weight lifted off my chest, and you know, that's a little bit thanks to the Knicks for tonight. So thank you, Knicks.
So the group chat curse is a misnomer, right? Because we named the group chat Pelicans 50 win fan club, right? Originally.
Yes.
Yep. What last season, when they were on an absolute tear, you had their future to win 50. Pelicans 50 win fan club. We were all on board with the Pelicans playing well. They fall off the mountain and absolutely die. So we jokingly changed it to Pelicans 30 win fan club. It lasted a long time. Then we went to Daniel Jones, or Danny Dimes 30 TD fan club, which was also one of your future bets, Cody. That fell off the mountain, flat on its face, L, hardcore, unfortunately. So we thought the group chat name was cursed. Now, I changed after you had a few cold weeks, as you said, cold as it is outside, weeks of gambling. I made the group chat Cody Wins a Bet fan club. And Mark Shenlugan jumped in and said, well, this group chat name is a curse. Now he's never going to win. I said, well, he's already been losing. So in fact, it might not be a curse as much as it is just like, I don't know what the word is, but it does the opposite of whatever it was doing.
What we need from it.
Yeah. So whatever it was happening before, it changes the course of action. So if you need something in your life, let us know at Subway Sports Talk. We'll make the group chat that name, and then it'll happen. That's how it works. So I'm happy for you that you chose winning instead of losing. It's a great call by you, and I'm hoping it continues. I got to say myself, I was cold as it was outside as well. December and early January were bad to us on football. You and I managed to lock in an over 500 record on the picks, which we'll do next week for the Super Bowl, which is great. But I've been on a little bit of a roll here as well. Bet on the Knicks against the Pacers right here on Thursday night. So that was a win as well. So good stuff. I'm glad you're winning. I'm going to try to continue to choose winning as well. But we'll get into it. We want to make this one a relatively short podcast, and a great way to do that is to start off by pontificating about nothing for the first 3 minutes. So now we'll get into it. Quick reminder, Subway Sports Talk on all your social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever. It's all there. Hit us up. Let us know what you think. We're going to talk Knicks off the jump right now, and then we're going to do our NBA contenders draft for Cody and I. We'll see who can pick the winners of the bunch here. The Knicks will probably come up in that one as well, which is exciting to say. So, Cody, I want to start off with this. We're going to get to the Pacers game specifically, but I did a podcast that released on Wednesday, the normal Wednesday podcast. I know you happened to listen to it, so I wanted to ask you, as I went through it, and for anyone who didn't listen to that, basically I went for the path of the Knicks to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I called them true Eastern Conference contenders. That was my big take. It wasn't that they were going to win the title, not that they were going to win the East, but to be considered an Eastern Conference contender, they need to get to the conference finals, and I think there's a path. I explained it. You listened to it. Do you think I was on base, off base, somewhere in between?
I think you're right on it. And I said it right before how this is not just, in my opinion, the topic because you're a Knicks fan or because this is a local, podcast. I think it's because the Knicks played their way in January into a legit contender. So where I see them as is a team with a puncher's chance in the East. I still think they're behind Boston. I think if they go play Milwaukee in a series, they would not be the favorite. It's tough to say where they'd match up against Philly or the Pacers, especially with so much health impending, and Embiid just went down with the knee. But they have a puncher's chance because this team is relentless. And you saw it on the boards today. Precious Achiuwa had 16 rebounds. I couldn't tell you how many were offensive, but it seemed like a whole handful. Hartenstein's all over the boards. He had 19 more. Josh Hart had 12 more. They played the last couple games without Anunoby, without Julius Randle, and tonight without Grimes, and they just haven't missed a beat. And so to see them be able to manage these type of games back to back with the Jazz, which I thought was a real good, kind of fall off spot, like a look past type of a game. And for them to go out and in a close game in the third quarter, take over and be able to control that game, win it by double digits, which is what they've done. Pacers, Halliburton wasn't fully healthy, but he played. Pacers were more healthy than the Knicks tonight, and that's a team that's a measuring stick game for them, right? That's a team that's right around their realm, and they're able to get another win, fight, claw, and do whatever it takes to be able to get that W despite being shorthanded. That's just kind of who they've been. That's what they've been doing throughout the month of January, and now as we get into February. They're just not a team you want to see in the playoffs because of that defensive tenacity, because of that relentlessness, and a legitimate star level player, Jalen Brunson, who was named to the All-Star team tonight, who can close out playoff games. This is a real team. This is a legit team, and I think that their ceiling has improved from making it past the second round to a puncher's chance to get out of the Eastern Conference like we've seen a Miami Heat team do 2 out of the last 4 years.
Yeah, and on a night where they shot 21% from three, 21%, 8 of 38, and your opponent shot 39, basically 40% from three, and you could win that game. Of course, they were helped by Tyrese Halliburton only playing 22 minutes, still being on that minute restriction. So that helps them, of course, right? But we also know that they're without Randle right now, which is a huge scoring punch for them. They had 60 rebounds. They out-rebounded the Pacers by 16. They had 24 offensive rebounds, out-rebounding the Pacers by 15 on the offensive boards alone. That's exactly where they won this game. They didn't have their best stuff offensively. We know Jalen Brunson did not shoot well from three. He was 1 for 6. DiVincenzo took 16 threes and hit 4 of them. The only person worth their weight in salt from three was Miles McBride, 3 for 8, which is not even that special. It's just decent, right? So they are finding ways to win now in a multitude of facets, which is one of the key points that I wanted to bring up earlier in the week is like, I wanted to talk to the people who react in a manner that goes, oh, you're talking about the Knicks. You're a Knicks fan. All you Knicks fans are delusional. You're off your rocker. They haven't done anything yet. Relax. And I say, listen, 9 times out of 10 in the Knicks history, I would 100% agree. I don't think I'm the fan who comes out here and says my team's going to win it all this year. I didn't pick the Giants to make the playoffs this year, right? Like, I don't just pick my team to win every single time. I haven't picked the Knicks to make it out of a first round. I was wrong last year. I thought they were going to lose last year. Actually, you know what? Technically, I did pick them to beat the Cavs once they got there, but in the middle of the season, like I didn't expect them to do that. But so I don't think I'm being hyperbolic. And I think you're right, Cody. The fact that this is a national topic, the fact that I'm listening to NBA wide podcasts now talking about the Knicks in a manner that they talk about the Sixers and the Bucks, that tells you everything you need to know. So for all the people out there who are saying, yo, Knicks fans, you guys are wildin', you've done this before, don't do it to yourselves again. I say, no. This team is different. They actually are belonging to the high-end group of the Eastern Conference. And I looked through every single stat I possibly could for this last podcast. The only one that is consistently in like the lower portion in the bottom tier of the league is assists, which, you could look at that number and point it in a bad direction and say it's a bad number. Sure, it's bad, but everything else is great to high end middle tier, right? Like some of their bad stats are 11th in the league. A lot of their stats are top 10. Go to Basketball Reference, check it out. Cross reference me. The only one that's in the bottom tier is assists, which could be a problem. However, they have guys like Jalen Brunson who don't need to be assisted that much, right? So it's kind of how it works, kind of how it plays out, and it's exciting. And Cody, let me ask you this question: this segment of games now without Julius Randle, is there a world where this can go positively, impacting them and like helping their others find their way? Is there a way this can go negatively where they feel like they're better without Randle and him coming back is actually a problem? Or do you think they're going to end up just straight up missing him over time in some of these tough matchups coming up?
Well, there's three parts there, right? So you're always going to miss an all-star level player. It's going to happen at some point. They haven't missed him yet, but getting Anunoby back will help cover some of that, of course. Missing both of them, there were stretches tonight
Right,
where
and no OG
yeah,
right.
and you really saw some of those stretches, especially with Brunson out, where DiVincenzo, he ended up 8 for 26, and he looked everything of it, like just early hot, and then kind of really cooled off, and the offense goes stagnant when that happens a little bit. So you're going to miss a high level player like that. I don't think it's going to impact them long term for Julius to not be there and for him to come in and that become a problem. I could see it becoming a very short term. Julius in the next week, he's easing his way in and we're trying to feed him shots and it throwing off a little bit of rhythm again in a very short term window. But I don't think it's going to be a long-term problem. And for the first part, yeah, you get a guy like Dante DiVincenzo who plays 35 minutes, who gets to take 20 to 25 shots because that's what's asked of him. He gets to get in a little bit of a rhythm. Miles McBride off the bench was awesome again tonight. He's been awesome on both sides of the floor. He's got a few more shots that get to go around for him. And maybe you solidify who that 8 or so guy playoff rotation is in a time like this. You earn those type of minutes. I'm sorry to go over to my team with the Thunder, but the first bet that I hit in forever was Aaron Wiggins last night, points, who's been playing awesome basketball. Jalen Williams went down. Isaiah Joe was hurt. There was just more shots to go around. So that's what's going to happen with those guys. I think it becomes a positive. You can play without him. You show that some other guys can, handle that workload. And when he comes back, it's only going to be an improvement. I don't see it being any type of a long-term issue.
Yeah, what I would be afraid of is the Knicks play so well without Julius Randle, and we know Julius Randle's shortcomings in the playoffs, right? Like his percentages go way down. It's the fact of the matter. It's true. His percentages have been bad. In the playoffs, you can make excuses about injuries, but it's true. If he comes back and they slow down, if he comes back and he's bad in the playoffs, it's going to be rumblings, and maybe they're deserved that they play better without him. Right? That's something that could happen. Now, I don't think their ceiling is at its highest without Julius Randle. I am not one of those guys. I really value what he's done, especially December and January. He's been fantastic. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen. It's just something that I am aware of. And it's partially going to be more of a narrative-based thing than it will be an actual on-court thing. Because I think it'll be pretty obvious when he comes back how his teammates are reacting to him, how Tibbs is playing him, that they're going to want him in there and they need him in there. And I think everyone knows that, but I'm not sure that fans will know that if some of the numbers start to play in the opposite direction. Now,
Yeah.
Cody, go ahead.
Quick, I just think when Brunson was out shows you why Randle's so important. That stretch right there, it's so simply like you just need the other creator, the other offensive star level player, and that's what Randle is. So there is not, to me, a world where he comes back and is not valued. They need him.
Yeah. I was listening to Ringer NBA show. They were doing a thing, and they were they were doing contender pie, which is like what percentage of the pie goes to each contender, right? And they were talking about the Knicks, and they said, which is kind of interesting, like all this talk about Jalen Brunson, if he's a true number one, and they thought this. I think it was Rob Mahoney who said it. Maybe Brunson is the number one. Are we sure that Julius Randle can be the true number two? And that is an interesting way of looking at it with his style of play. Will he ever be able to be the second star. Because if we all can agree that Brunson's not a top 5 player in the NBA, maybe he'll have stretches where he looks like one or whatever it is. He's not a top 5 player from an impact standpoint. There's just too many good players. He's very, very good. He's close to the top 10 right now in the NBA for this season. Sure, we'll say that, but he's not top 5. You need a 2 who's like a top 15, top 20 to go alongside that slightly less tier number 1. So that's the question. Can Julius Randle be the number 2? So we'll keep an eye. It's going to be 2 to 3 weeks. He'll be reevaluated. That's the word out right now. And we'll see where that leaves him, and we'll see where that leaves the Knicks. They have obviously some good games coming up. They just beat the Pacers, but they got the Lakers, which even though they're under 500, is never an easy game. Grizzlies, Dallas, Indiana again, Houston, Orlando, Philly, Boston, Detroit. Those are the next handful of games throughout February. So we'll see what they do. We'll see if they punch up even without Randle against some of these above 500 teams they're going to face. They're definitely going to want to beat Orlando after already dropping 2 to them this year. Big game next Thursday against Dallas, who they lost to. Those are the only 2 losses since OG has been traded to the Knicks. So you want to get those. Those are a little bit pride factor games as well, to know you can beat the teams that beat you, that you haven't beat yet, right? And obviously the Celtics kind of speak for themselves. So yeah, last thing on the Knicks, Cody, before we get to our contender draft, I want to ask you from like an analytics perspective, because I think you and I are pretty similar from basketball fanhood perspective, where we watch a lot of basketball, right? Like we're both on League Pass, we're both watching, we're both gambling on a lot of different games, and which is probably good or bad, whatever. But we're tuned in as much as most fans could be, right? When you see things on the court, do you turn to the analytics stuff? So like when I make the arguments about the Knicks net ratings or their projected win total or their true shooting percentages or whatever you wanted to go to from a win shares perspective, whatever it is, when you see those analytics and they're now favoring the Knicks and putting them in that top tier, not just like number 8, I'm talking like top 3, top 5 in the NBA. Does that mean anything to you? Or is that something that you're kind of like, it looks nice, but I'm not going to really commit to it?
I think I always kind of play that line with analytics where it's like, yes, they can factor in, yes, they can be valuable and they can be important. They can never be my end all be all. When it comes to things like, and I've seen a lot of these, and typically when the Knicks are grouped into them, it's with Boston, it's with Oklahoma City, it's with Denver, it's with the Clippers, who have been unbelievable of late. It's like offensive rating, defensive rating, and teams who are top 5 in both of them. And there's very few of those, and the Knicks have been up there. Their offensive efficiency has been up. Their defensive efficiency, I mean, you can just watch that. You could be a novice and see, like, holy crap, these guys play kind of a different level of defense than a lot of the teams do around the league. And that's not easy to do, but I do have a factor of it, of course. It plays a factor. It plays an impact. It can help tell the story. It'll never tell the full story for me. That's just how I view analytics. And part of that comes from having watched as much as you said. I got to trust what I see too. That's, part of how, probably part of the trouble I get into gambling, but I'll never stop.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think I'm probably just a touch more analytically driven than you are. Like I look at the stats probably more than you, and like it's no way that's better or worse, right? I think the analytics, like you said, they can probably lead me down some wrong roads, right? They've led me down the wrong road with James Harden for 15 years. So I get it, right? Because he's been an analytical monster for his entire career, and he is again this year. Which people aren't ready for that conversation just yet, really, how good he's been in Los Angeles. But nonetheless, it's led me down some bad paths too. So I'm not saying it's perfect, but like you mentioned, when you see something, when you watch the Thunder, when you watch the Knicks, when you watch even a team like the Pacers for that matter, and then you say, wow, that team seems like they just cook on offense. Like, what is that? And you check the stats and it's like, oh, wow, no, their offense is the most productive like in the league right now, right? It's like, oh, okay, boom, 2 for 2. That's what you need. It's almost like you need one can't come without the other. Like if you watch a team and you're impressed with some of their players and they keep losing tight games or they keep coming up short or they keep just winning lucky games, not lucky, but like last minute games. Like the Bucks right now are an example where they've won a lot of games in the early part of their season last minute because Dame is clutch. He's built like that. He's different in that situation. Some of their analytics are not as good as the Celtics or the Knicks or the Clippers or the Nuggets or whatever. And does that make us think that the Bucks aren't any good? Like, no, we can't do that either, right? So you have to be careful when you look at the analytic stuff, which we're going to get into more now as we enter our contender draft. Anything else on the Knicks? They'll probably come up again in this contender draft, I had to imagine. So anything else before we move on about the game that you just watched or anything?
No, I had a thought about them, but I think I'm going to save it maybe for a different time. I think it's a longer and a larger conversation point. Just
Okay.
a question, a thought I had, but
All right. So what we're going to do now, Subway Sports Talk, Pete Kennedy, Cody O'Connor, we're going to draft the NBA contenders. And the point of this is really just to grab the 5 teams we think have the best opportunity to win the NBA finals, right? So you can probably think off the top of your head some of those teams that are going to come up. Obviously, the teams at the top with the best chances, you think we want to draft them at the top, but maybe there'll be some movers. Maybe there'll be some sleepers who we think have the real value or the real chances to win that are different from the odds, right? So we're going to go every other. When it's 2 people, you don't need to go 2 picks in a row. We've established that, but I'll establish it again. And Cody O'Connor, I think I'd allow you to go first since, you're my guest right now. So why don't you go first? Kick us off. NBA contenders draft. Who is your number 1 pick?
all right, I'll take it. It's most of the year I've been saying Boston, even before the season. I do still think they are the best and the most complete basketball team currently. However, you have to play into account one of the least favorite games of all time is playing the injury bug. What do I think's really going to happen? Who do I think can stay healthy for a 2-month stretch in May and June? Right? Who's fully going to be able to do that? And with Boston, what scares me is how not necessarily fully reliant, but how impactful and how important Kristaps Porzingis is, and the fact that we just haven't seen him healthy long enough to feel fully confident. And so, with that, I am going to shift a little bit, and I'm going to go with the team who seems like they're sleepwalking through the regular season in the Denver Nuggets. I don't even know how their record is still as good as it is because it feels like every time I look up, I go, damn, they lost again. Maybe it's because I never expect them to lose, especially with Joker. But I still think he's the best player in the league, even if he's not going to win MVP, which he's right up there. Jamal
will.
Murray, I think, still turns it on. Aaron Gordon has been really, really good for them. MPJ has not, in my eyes, but what I've seen from MPJ is slightly concerning, especially as the guy who you expect to be the number 3 scoring option. But I still think there's a move for Denver. Them losing Bruce Brown, I think, is a bigger impact than people realize. But I think there's a move, a Bruce Brown-like move for them to bring somebody in and to solidify that roster. And I still think, for my money, they're my favorite team in the West to come out. And I trust them and the Joker more than anyone. So that's my number 1 pick, and I feel like I probably took it from you.
Yeah, you did. Maybe I thought I was slick because I tried to give you the first pick, maybe thinking you'd take the Boston Celtics so I can swoop in and take the Denver Nuggets. They would have been my first pick as well, Cody. And I think there is something to the pedigree, right? Like with all the analytics that we just talked about, for a team like the Nuggets right now, they just don't really matter that much. And I'm not going to compare them to the Warriors or to the LeBron Cavaliers or Heat or anything like that because they obviously have to do more to be talked about in that ilk. But when you have a team who's won it already, who has the best player in the world right now, there's not an emphasis to win 65 games. It just doesn't exist for Denver right now, especially with some of the moving parts in their roster. But when it comes down to it, in a playoff series, I trust them to figure it out as much as anybody in the league. Whereas Boston, and I'm probably about to pick them, like I don't know if I trust them as much offensively to adapt, to read their defense and just problem solve constantly, right? Like Jokic is the ultimate problem solver. When you throw a double team at him, you're screwed with his passing. If you single cover him, he's going to score 40, right? He just does it all. And Jamal Murray, we know what he's done. That's the number 1 pick for me as well. And right now, for the odds perspective, they are plus 450. That's the second best odds behind the Boston Celtics, who I will take with my first pick. So my first pick in the contenders draft is the Boston Celtics. And like I talked about this on the pod earlier in the week, there's been years where they're awesome. There's been years where they are expected to be in the conversation for NBA finals. This is the first year that they are tried and true, the number 1 contender in the NBA. And I think that says something to how they built this team. what Derek White's meant to their team, what Drew Holiday has meant to their team, how Sam Hauser has fit into that rotation and shooting the lights out, playing better defense than expected. I think the Celtics, a lot of people just don't even know what to say about them right now because they're so freaking good. They're so solid. With Porzingis, he's been phenomenal for them. And like you said, it's probably the reason why I would have picked them number 2 if I was going straight through as well, that he has injury concerns. Last year was the first year, like in his entire career, he didn't have any big injuries. What's going to happen? He's been dealing with them now already in Boston. Let's see if he can continue. They're the right pick. It would be malpractice to not pick them in the top 2. I think without a doubt, Denver and Boston, no matter how you skin the cat, should be the first 2 picks in a contenders draft. And then the field gets pretty damn interesting.
Yeah, they have to be. And just really quickly, the last thing, like you said it, but I just trust the consistency of Nikola Jokic. And that's really what it comes down to. I trust his consistency more than I trust Jason Tatum's, and even Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for that, as they just lost to the Lakers without AD or LeBron. I mean, granted, it's a regular season game, but, it's just it's they're the top 2. I'm glad we took them 1 and 2. And I guess I got to go square here for my third and the third pick. But to me, it's Milwaukee. I do think that they are the third contender. I'll leave the other guys for you, but Milwaukee has Giannis, who's a top 2, maybe 3 player who seems to be, almost like not talked about as much. He's not quite in the MVP conversation. They're still working in and through Dame, and now they've got Doc Rivers. And does that help them? I do think it's better than having a first-year coach. We know about Doc's playoff woes and his collapses, I suppose, with the 3-1 leads and whatnot. But I still trust him, and I trust them to figure something out. Their big concern is defensively, which we all knew going into the season. When you lose Drew Holiday and you've added Dame Lillard, there's going to be a drop-off defensively. I don't know that we knew it would be this significant, but their closing 5 has been there. Their closing 5 will have been there. Giannis, Brook Lopez, probably Bobby Portis is in there with Middleton and Dame. And I trust that they are going to be able to give everybody fits, their length. I think they have to just shore up. And defensively, a lot of times it comes from your effort. If you're going to really ramp it up in the playoffs, they have at least the skill, the athleticism, the length to make things uncomfortable, and I think to make those adjustments. So for those reasons, I will take the Milwaukee Bucks with pick 3.
All right. I don't know if I would have picked them, so I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at right now in this draft. I'm going to take for my second pick, and this is not going to shock people who just listen to the rest of this podcast. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Clippers as my second pick, the 4th pick overall. And I think the key point that I would make on this front is the big argument against the Clippers right now is A, the franchise is cursed. That's 1. And B, James Harden is a bona fide loser in the playoffs. Those are 2 things that exist in the ether of sports talk. Absolutely. Both of which have merit, right? I'm one of the biggest James Harden stans. Obviously, I've had to take a step back in the last couple of years on that front. But my dude played amazing last year for Philly in the playoffs. 2 amazing games that helped them win, 2 not so amazing games that helped them lose. But Embiid was absolutely not blameless in that regard either, because his numbers plummeted in the playoffs last year as well. Now James Harden's in Los Angeles with the Clippers. The one thing that he's never had, Cody, he's never had a guy who's been the lone lead on a championship team as his teammate, right? You can say Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was never a lone lead on a championship team. And plus, the year in which they were at their best, Kyrie didn't play in the playoffs. James Harden was playing on one leg. All right. So that argument for me makes some sort of sense. Kawhi Leonard is the reason why you take the Clippers and buy their stock right now. It's also Paul George. It's also James Harden. It's also Norman Powell and Zubac, who's playing well. Their team is really good. They've been just as good as the Knicks over the past 2 months. They've been fantastic after the first week and a half of that James Harden trade. Kawhi Leonard is back, baby. Kawhi Leonard is right now playing almost every single night. He's played 42 games already this season. He's top 10 in win shares per 48 minutes. Kawhi Leonard is doing all the things that we expected Kawhi to do after he won the title in Toronto, but hasn't been healthy enough to do so. We're seeing the real Kawhi back right now. So if you want to come at me and say James Harden's a loser, they're going to lose, I'm saying he's never played with Kawhi Leonard before. And Paul George is the same concept as James Harden. You're going to say they're going to lose because Paul George is not good enough or falls apart in the playoffs? Kawhi Leonard is the guy who will be the number one who carries them there. I think that they're a great bet for this. I think that they are properly getting the love that they deserve right now. Some people are skeptical, and it's mostly because it's the Clippers and it's James Harden. But the fact of the matter is Kawhi trumps that. Kawhi is the ticket. Kawhi is the reason that they would have a chance to win the NBA Finals.
Yeah, another team who I think is health. Obviously you can do this with everybody, but some teams are a little more health concerning than others. They're one of them because their stars are a little older. But I don't think people realize just how good they've been defensively too. And I think part of that is the James Harden side of things, right? You think a team with James Harden is probably not a leader in defending. The age of Kawhi and Paul George, which they seem older than I think they are, but no, they've been playing really, really good, legit basketball. And Ty Lue's one of the best coaches in the NBA. So I think we did a responsible job because to me, those are the top 4 contenders. And now I'll shock nobody with my third pick and take my own Oklahoma City Thunder. And I don't think this is too much of a homer pick. There's some teams around them, but I genuinely believe this is where they should be drafted in this little draft of ours because I think there's a move still for them. I've been saying it for a while. Obviously, I don't know as much as Sam Presti. I'm not going to try and pretend I know more than him and Mark Dagnall, who's up there for Coach of the Year right now. But I think they absolutely need a big man who can clean the boards and who you get in specific Western Conference matchups where you might be going against Anthony Davis. You could be going against Karl Anthony Towns, obviously Nikola Jokic, and you might just need a guy who can bang with them. They're not going to stop them. I'm not saying they're going to completely shut them down. Nobody does. But maybe a guy who can take 4 fouls in his 15, 18 minutes, but can really finish off defensive possessions. That's where they've really lacked, is being able to corral that rebound and just finish off defensive possessions. And for such a young team, I understand why people will be skeptical, but they have guys everywhere. And Knicks fans got a little introduction to Jalen Williams about a month or so ago when he went off for a career-high 36 against them. And my brother texted me, said, dude, Chet's awesome, but who the hell is this Jalen Williams guy? And I'm like, I've been trying to tell people.
Yeah.
We did this at the end of last year when he went on that run that almost brought him to Rookie of the Year with Paulo. I'm like, you got to watch this guy. His athleticism and his shooting numbers are unbelievable right now. His splits are close to 50, 40, 90. He's an efficient scorer, and they just play well together. They're well coached, kind of seamlessly fit like the Knicks. Like, they just are unselfish. They'll make the right play. They have the closer. They have the superstar in SGA, who is more than just a scorer. I'm telling you, this guy is one of the best under control decision makers that we have in the NBA. He's a great playmaker. He's a great decision maker. We know about the scoring, but I think it's a little underappreciated just how often he makes the right basketball play and how seldom he's turning the ball over. And there's numbers that back it that I don't have at my disposal because I do a bad job of preparing myself with that. But there's been numbers that have only been compared to MJ, and I've seen them all over Twitter, things like 30-plus points and under 2 turnovers, 30-plus points and 2-plus steals. So they do it on both ends. I think they do need to make that move to get a big man. It doesn't have to be a splash play. It doesn't have to be a superstar. But I think if they do, they have the team, the makeup, and the coach that can really make a good run and give a lot of teams fits in the playoffs. And obviously they're young, but I still believe that they have the makeup of a team like that.
And I considered taking them with my last pick, honestly. And this is where the draftsmanship shows up here, because I think where we are right now, we have 5 teams taken. Mm-hmm. I feel like that should be the top 5, in my opinion. Like, no matter who you take second or third or fourth or fifth, like, I think that's the top 5. And the odds would be relatively close to that. The Thunder are much lower in the DraftKings odds, not much lower, 2 spots lower. There are 2 teams above the Thunder that aren't the teams that we already drafted here. But I think the Thunder have the makeup. They have the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of it all. Like, he's a guy who is scheme proof to my eyes. Like, I don't see him getting shut down. I see that their other weaknesses being a problem in the playoffs. Like, I see the Thunder and I'm like, damn, would the Pelicans be a really tough matchup for them? Right? Like, that's also part of this as well. East Conference versus West Conference. If you look at the East and you are the Celtics, Bucks, Knicks, Sixers, Cavs, first round, I mean, I guess the 4-5 is going to be really tough with whoever it is, Knicks, Cavs, or Sixers, or God forbid, Bucks, whatever. Like, that's going to be tough no matter what. But Pacers, Heat, Magic, Bulls, Hawks is a lot more manageable than Kings, Suns, Pelicans, Mavericks, Lakers. Like, that's just way more of an undertaking than it is in the Eastern Conference. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky here. And I think there are some tough matchups for the Thunder. Like, if they show up against the Lakers in a playoff series, do you think LeBron at this age has the ability to still figure out what he has to do against a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are inexperienced? They're the most inexperienced team in the Western Conference right now. So those questions are very real, because even the Timberwolves, who might come up in the next couple of picks here, they've been in 2 playoffs in a row. They kind of gave the Nuggets the best go last year, who were the champions. The Lakers gave them a decent go despite getting swept, but the Timberwolves played pretty well. They have some of the makeup. They have a defense that you would think travels. So the Thunder worry me only in that regard. Like, are they a little bit matchup dependent because of the size thing? So we'll see if they can fix that.
I've had this take that I've been kind of squandering, and it goes exactly to what you're saying, where, like, I try to figure and deem what it will be a successful season for Oklahoma City this year, right? They're obviously competing right now for a 1 seed, and so when you hear that, you'd think something of a championship or bust. They're obviously not there. They're young, they're building, they haven't gone through this, and for the most part in the NBA, there are steps that you take to get to that level. We watch the Warriors have to fight through playoffs to finally break through and become the Warriors. Unless you make the huge trade like Miami did with LeBron and Bosh, it doesn't really just happen like that. So as I think about what's a successful season, I genuinely believe it's winning the first round. And it's because of exactly what you said. I think their ceiling might be a title, while winning the first round is what I deem success, because they might be matched up with the Suns and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, or the Lakers with LeBron and AD, or you might even get the Kings, who were just there and gave the Warriors a run for their money, or the Pelicans, who you mentioned, or Luka and the Mavericks. These could be first-round matchups. And that's a damn hard thing to go and say, hey, we're going to take out Luka Doncic, who is going to put up probably 38 points per game with 10 rebounds and 10 assists. So their second round becomes, like we mentioned, Clippers, Timberwolves. So as I see it, their ceiling is still a title. I do believe that's a legitimate ceiling. It's the absolute peak of what they can do. But being measured in what I consider a successful season is being able to win a playoff series and probably competing in the next with one of those really, really good teams that are probably more experienced, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And then it becomes a Knicks situation like last year. Like last year for the Knicks, it was absolutely win a first round series. What a win of a season. But then you get to the second round and you say, okay, now compete. At minimum, this better be a series. And it was kind of not a series with the Heat. It kind of was. They had they went, did it go six or did it go 5? It went 6, but it didn't feel that close, right? Like in those games 5 and 6, it didn't feel like it was within as much range as it should have been. So, like, very successful season for the Knicks last year. Disappointing the way it ended, but generally a success. If the Thunder go to the second round and get like freaking mollywopped, you're going to feel a little bit worse about it. But if they go to the second round and go 7 and compete and come into, a few minutes of making it to the conference championship, then, it's a different conversation. So I think that's a pretty reasonable way to look at it. This is where it gets incredibly hard, though, if I'm being honest, because I just talked about how the West is undoubtedly just tougher than the Eastern Conference. But the team that I think I might pick here is in the Western Conference. And one of the main reasons I'm going to do that is because this team playing now at full strength for the first time in January, now February just started, they haven't played a game yet. They look like they have some of the makeup. Okay. This team, I didn't have faith in coming into the season. This team last year in the playoffs, I called their demise because of how they were winning games in the playoffs. It's the Phoenix Suns. Granted, last year they had just gotten that band together. KD and Devin Booker did not play enough leading into that playoffs. But in the games they won in the playoffs, I mean, Durant and Booker had to do so much. They had to score 70 points together to even have a chance in a game. It's not sustainable. It's not a way to win. But now with Bradley Beal, which comes back to the injury concern, they have been playing a lot better. Their effective field goal percentage, which is more encompassing of a field goal percentage, has gone up 6 points of percentage in January. And that's when Beal's been back and healthy. Like, that is a no joke number right there. Their offense, which is how they have to win, absolutely how they have to win, has to be elite. And last year with just Booker and just Durant, I did not feel great about it that they can just carry the entire franchise, the two of them. Now they have that third puncher. They do have Nurkic, who's been playing pretty well. They do have Grayson Allen, who's been playing pretty well. Do we trust a Koji? Do they have a move to make? They have a owner who's clearly desperate enough to make a move. It might ruin their franchise for the next 3 years, but they might just go ahead and do it this year. So I'm going to take the Phoenix Suns with my next pick reluctantly, because I honestly, like, at the heart of hearts, they're a team that, like, they don't line up with my values of what it takes to win a championship. But looking at this board with their star players, matchups come into play as well. They're a team that can match up with just about anybody, right? Like, they have the makeup to go toe to toe with like any sort of matchup, right? They can kind of go into shootouts. They have the star power to show up night in, night out, have different guys carry them. So I'm going to reluctantly take the Phoenix Suns with my next pick, even though I have this guttural doubt that this type of makeup, this type of team can't win a championship. But I think at this point in the draft, they're the best pick.
Yeah, the NBA, it gets quick, right? How many teams can really win a title? It's usually between 4 and 6. And so now that we've got 6 off the board, that's where we're at. So you have to take Phoenix because they have Kevin Durant, they have Devin Booker, and even Bradley Beal to a lesser extent. They had to be taken. It's the responsible thing to do. But I'm going to take the team who I really think is the next team here. I really do believe it's the New York Knicks.
Wow.
I like Minnesota. I don't really like the Lakers. I don't like their makeup. I don't trust Anthony Davis as the best player on a championship team. Obviously, health is pending with everyone. I keep mentioning, but there's some older superstars in the league that health is a concern. And so for the Knicks, who are younger, who are established, who are playing as good a basketball as anyone in the league, and who have a real identity of who they are and what they want to do, and again, have a closer. So it's been talked about now the last couple of days. I've heard the comparisons with Miami, and I'm a little upset because I made that take the night, I think Sunday night, before I heard some of the podcasts, and I go, dang, I was on it, but these people got it out first. But I really see that parallel, and if I'm a Knicks fan, that's exactly what I talk myself into, is the Miami runs of a team where you say, all right, well, Jimmy's their best player. He's probably between 10 and 15 best in the NBA. Well, that's what Jalen Brunson is right now, between 10 and 15, and a bona fide closer who we have already seen on multiple stages, including in college, raise and elevate his level in the biggest stages. That's who he is. He's got multiple budding stars with him, like Julius Randle and even OG to another extent. Dante DiVincenzo, who is clearly not afraid to shoot the ball and has played in big moments in big games, winning a championship with Brunson. There's chemistry there, and Bill Simmons always puts it this way, but they have a bunch of guys who just give a shit. They have even Precious Achiuwa tonight, who just came over in that trade, but just embodies what this Knicks team has been and what they have become. They have a real identity, like I said, and they're a tough team to play. They're a bunch of tough SOBs. They're not going to give you an inch. You're going to have to earn everything, and you're going to feel it if you do. And in a weaker Eastern Conference, like we said, they have a puncher's chance in my eyes. I don't know if there's still a move yet to be made for them, but what I've seen, what I'm seeing, and what I believe that they will do come playoff time, I'm going to have them leapfrog Philly, who I've seen the same team get run out over and over again and fall short over and over. Yes, this is a different coach. I really like Nick Nurse, but I think I trust the Knicks even more than I trust Philly, and that's where I'm going. I want to take them there. That's who I believe is the next pick for me off the board.
I'm disappointed in myself. I really am. Like, part of me is thinking, like, okay, do the Knicks have a better chance than a team with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. I don't know. Maybe they have an equal chance, and maybe they have a slightly less chance from a team perspective, but they might have the easier path, right? So that's where I'm like having a little bit of drafter's remorse right now. I kind of wish I took the Knicks with the last pick. It felt a little early. It felt like a little tough, but I kind of spoon fed you the New York Knicks there. And
Thank
people might be listening to this saying, New York bias, bro. Why aren't you picking the Philadelphia 76ers? Like, I'll get there in a minute. But they truly have the makeup now. And I think the OG aspect of this thing, where before this trade, one of my biggest points why I liked the idea of the trade and then liked it as soon as it happened was they didn't have a guy to defend Tatum. They didn't have a guy to size up Giannis. They didn't have a guy to size up Jimmy Butler, right? Like, they just didn't have that in their bag. Josh Hart is a good defender. Dante DiVincenzo is a decent defender. RJ Barrett was okay at defense. Like, he probably was okay at best. They have a bona fide all defense level player right now who can look at Jason Tatum and say, I'm going to make your life hell for 7 games, right? They didn't have that before. So now if the Knicks play the Celtics and, Tatum is going off, right? Like, against the Knicks without OG, maybe he has 1 or 2 bad games where he just doesn't shoot well. Josh Hart's annoying him, and it happens like that. Now, if Jason Tatum, just in theory, Cody, if he had a rough series against the Knicks, who's going to be shocked? Because if OG's guarding him up and making his life really difficult and he shoots really inefficiently, who's blown away? I don't think anyone would be or should be, right? And that's something that you couldn't have said about them before this trade and couldn't have said about any iteration of the Knicks before this, when there was a puncher's chance last year due to injury, due to playing Miami, due to it's like, oh, who knows what happens now that they're in this matchup here. This is not just like who knows what could happen? Who knows who can get hurt? No. OG can make Giannis's life hell. He can make Tatum's life hell. He can make Jimmy Butler's life hell. That's real. So you can't take that away from them. But now I don't have them on my team, which sucks. But it is what it is. All right. My next pick, and we're getting to a weird point now where the teams are interesting. And God damn it. I didn't want to take this team because I don't think they have a true great chance to win the title. I just think there's a little bit missing from their offense late in games. But defense travels, and I think their star is him. I'll take the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're the 1 seed, and I think the big point in taking the Timberwolves here is what they've done in the playoffs of the past 2 years. And no, they haven't made it to a conference championship or a conference finals, whatever. I'm talking about football right now. Conference finals. But they've gone toe-to-toe with really good teams 2 years in a row in the playoffs. And they showed up against Denver and made that thing a series. Now Gobert actually makes sense with this team. Their defense actually is doing what it's supposed to do. Karl-Anthony Towns isn't trying to be the man every single night, except for when he goes for 70. Anthony Edwards is the man. It's known. Everyone on that roster knows it. And it's a guarantee that their maturity is better now than it was before. So do I think they have a great chance? No, but we're down to team number 8 right now. No one at number 8 is going to have a great chance, right? They have a chance. Defense travels. They can make everyone's life hard. They match up well with just about everybody. What worries me is their offense with 3 minutes left in a close game. It's been an issue. And it might continue to be an issue, and it might bear its head even worse in the playoffs. But looking at their roster, looking at Anthony Edwards, looking at the vet like Mike Conley and Naz Reid, who's a monster off the bench, you could see him having some swing games in the playoffs. They're the reasonable pick to me. I'll take the Timberwolves at my number 4 pick.
Yeah, the long athletic team, really tough to score against, can switch just about everything. And I agree. And I even thought, despite the fact that I don't like Rudy Gobert, and I've much made that clear, and I thought they gave up far too much for him, but I actually did think in the moment the trade made sense because he does everything that Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't do well, and vice versa. Like, if you morph them into one player, they could be one of the best of all time. Like that,
they'd be like Joel Embiid basically, but
yeah, but they probably
maybe still fall apart in the playoffs.
Well, I was going to say maybe they play past the second round, but I guess we're not taking them. Yeah, but they do make sense, and you're right. They've had the late game struggles, but Mike Conley's been out, and that's a big factor in their late game offense. A guy who can slow the pace, calm the offense down, and get you into some good sets. So they needed to go, and so now we're in another weird realm. And I swear, a couple of weeks ago, I watched Miami play OKC, and I was like, dude, this team's going to be heard from. There's no way that they are not going to be. And now they've been on this stretch where it's like, are they actually going to like trade Jimmy Butler? Like that's been a talking point where Jimmy Butler could get moved, which again, I'm with you. I don't buy it even a little bit.
Wait,
but
can I give you an aside real quick? Because I know you're also a teacher, so you might appreciate this.
I will.
One of my students, star broadcast student, if you will, does play-by-play for us. He does a lot of stuff. He's a great sports fan. He's a great young broadcaster in high school right now. He comes into my office. Did you hear Jimmy Butler's on the block? I'm like, what? No. What did you just say to me right now? And he's like, no, they tweeted it out. I'm like, who tweeted it out? NBA Central. I'm like, all right, irrelevant. It means nothing to me. And he's like, yeah, but the odds are that if he gets traded, the Knicks are the best odds to get him. I'm like, according to who? He's like, Bovada. I'm like, that's irrelevant. That's not even a real. Just stop. Walk back out of my office, come back in, and we'll start this conversation again. This is not happening.
Not only is that not a real report, that's not even a real sports book. That's like so far down the list of how many sports books opened up. Sorry, Bovada. But yeah, I'm between two teams, and I already mentioned one being Miami because I just don't think they're going to be unheard of. I think this is a bad stretch, but it's not a bad team. They've got Jamie Jaquez Jr., who's come on really strong as another scoring option, and again, just have the versatility, and they play tough. And Spoelstra, maybe the best coach in the NBA. Jimmy turns it on when he needs to. Bam is still a borderline, just below. Actually, he's an all-star this year, so he's an all-star level player. And they just, Tyler Hero, can get his own shot and create for himself at any point. I still think, and I guess that's where I'm going to go, is I'm going to take Miami, partially because of the Eastern Conference. I think now would be the time to get them. And they have the pedigree. They've been there 2 out of the last 4 years. And I think it's too reactive to let a week and a half, 2 week stretch of bad basketball by them where they're not closing out games skew me from what I have seen for multiple years and what I saw when I watched a couple full games of them. And that's a tenacious, tough, difficult team who will be a hard out. And when you're at this point in the draft, I think we're looking for hard outs, and the Miami fits the mold. So Miami, what's that? The 8th pick right there. I've got one more.
That's the 9th pick.
That's 9. Oh, that's it for you.
Oh, that's no. You're right. That's 8th.
8. You're 9.
Then I picked. No, that's 7.
7. You're 8. I'm woohoo math.
Wow, how about that?
Damn it! I'm literally counting to 10. That's the math. Count to 10.
Neither of us teach math, all right?
That's right. Listen, not even close.
Hear me out.
I tell them the school board doesn't work when we play games in PE, so no math.
I occasionally walk past a geometry teacher's class and just yell out, side angle side. And then like one time he was like, actually, yes. And I was like, yeah, here we go. Math. How about it? All right. I was going to take the heat there. So another one, I feel like my draft strategy has not been great so far in this draft here, but I feel like you would have taken the Timberwolves if I didn't either. So maybe it's working out okay at the moment. Is this the time of the draft where we read the teams that are kind of like available still? I'm going to do that if that's okay with you. We have Sixers, Lakers. You picked the Heat already. Sixers, Lakers, Mavericks, Kings, Cavs, Warriors, Pelicans. I feel like that would be the only people left to even remotely consider, and the Warriors aren't even in the freaking play-in right now.
You wouldn't get down to the Pacers, given some of the teams you named above them? You don't think the Pacers?
Yeah, you know what? We'll throw the Pacers in there as well. I don't think I'm going to pick them, but sure, they're in consideration.
And then I think that's
as
the
well.
Stopping point.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I mean, if you throw the Pacers in, do you throw the Magic in? Probably not. They don't have enough shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so those are the teams that remain. I'm going to take – this is my 4th pick, right? No, this is my 5th pick.
No, wait, it is?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, we really can't count, Cody. God damn it, we cannot count. This is the last pick. What the hell are we doing here? My God, maybe we should spend some time in math class. God damn it.
I'll stop by.
This is the last pick.
One of my preps.
all the more intrigue now to this final pick here. Hopefully someone's listening along. Like, are you guys dumb? I don't even have it in front of me, and I know you're up to number 10.
The answer is yes, for the record.
Nonetheless, wow, this makes my pick so much harder now that I realize it's my last one. All right. This is damned if you do, damned if you don't. All right. Here's my case. Since you don't even have another pick, I can lay it all out there for you, Cody. Keeping the Sixers off feels like what I want to do because second round Sixers, it's been a thing. Embiid's numbers, actually, you know what? I'm going to freaking bring them up right now because guess what? I did a deep dive into Joel Embiid's numbers recently because, again, I was just annoyed at Joel Embiid people online saying that, he's still better than Jokic and da-da-da and all this crap. I'm so sick of it, Cody, that I looked this up so I don't even have to worry that the stats are going to add up to what I said because I know. I just looked at them yesterday. All right, ready? Regular season, Joel Embiid, effective field goal percentage, 56%. That's with a 53% from the field. 30. This is just for this year, by the way. I should probably do last year, right? Let me do last year to be specific here. 57% effective field goal percentage. That's a 55 from the field, 33 from three, which is a little bit just below his career average. And his free throw percentage is 85. In the playoffs last year, effective field goal percentage, 45%. Massive drop off. His career effective field goal percentage in the playoffs, 49%. In his career, it's 54. Massive drop off. Okay. So in the playoffs, it is not just hyperbolic talk. It is not people hating on Joel Embiid. It is true fact. Just like I've admitted true fact on James Harden falling short in the playoffs, yet I still root for him. You can still root for Embiid, but I'm telling you it's true. He has fallen off in the playoffs a lot. And that's why I do not want to pick them here. Plus now he's injured again. Plus now Tyrese Maxey has to make a massive leap in the playoffs here, which he very well may be able to. They also may need to make a huge move that may not be available to them. So I'm worrisome about the Sixers. I don't think they match up great with Boston. I don't think they match up great with Milwaukee. I don't think they match up great with the Knicks. So that all being said, my other options are the Lakers, the Mavericks, and to me, the Cavs and Pelicans. Those are my other options. I'm not considering the Kings, Warriors, Pacers. I'm considering the Lakers, Mavericks, Cavs, Pelicans. Cavs, it's been burned too many times on Donovan Mitchell Island. It's been too many times. Can't do it. The Mavs, to me, are a pick with Luka Doncic in mind that he's good enough to carry a team for multiple rounds in the playoffs. He's good enough. We know it. Maybe you don't, not you, Cody, but you out there don't know it. He don't play the right style. He's too heliocentric because you heard someone say it once on a podcast. He doesn't get his teammates involved enough. He's so freaking good, a problem solver at every angle. I love Luka. I think if I were going to make a pick without any just outside unscientific ideas, it would be the Dallas Mavericks. But with that being said, I cannot leave LeBron off the contenders list, Cody. I'm not doing it. I'm taking the Lakers with my last pick. And that leaves me with 4 teams from the Eastern Conference on my 5 picks, which I don't like either. But I cannot sit here with all that we know, with what we saw as recently as last season, that I could leave off the LeBron-led Lakers. When it comes to the playoff series, when he has the extra rest, when he's constantly problem solving, when he's figuring out the weak point in every team that he plays, he has as good a chance as any team available on this list to win the finals. Do I think it's likely? Obviously not. He's our 10th pick. But I can't leave him off this list, Cody. Lakers are my final pick.
All right. I would have gone Dallas, and it was because of Luka. Straight up, just Luka.
Yeah. That would be my scientific pick, which is still not that scientific. Yeah. But my unscientific heart pick for my final pick in the draft, I'm not leaving LeBron off this list.
That's fair. And I love LeBron. I love him. I hope you're right. But I cannot get there with Anthony Davis. And I'm like kicking myself because I took that Bill Simmons boost with the Lakers at 45 plus wins. And I knew going in that was the one I was by far the most concerned about. It's Oklahoma City for 40 plus, Lakers 45 plus, Boston 50 plus. I felt so good about the other two that I felt like plus 250 for that one leg potentially. Let's go for it. Let's take the gamble. And right now it doesn't look too great, but I would have gone Dallas because of Luka. That's who I was between with them and Miami. And I think that's it.
Part of it, though, part of it with Dallas that I didn't mention is Kyrie Irving, right? Like
Being in and out,
it.
or the fact that he's
Talking about being burned, man.
yeah.
Every year, it's been years, and honestly, like it's another thing that like kind of bugs me online is people who want to put Kyrie Irving in a tier with the best point guards of the past like 20 years. It's like, no, listen, if you want to talk about talent, if you want to talk about skill, do it all day. Kyrie Irving has it all. Kyrie Irving hasn't done nearly as much as the best point guards. Like, you know what? Maybe point guards is the wrong topic to do. Maybe I'm misnomering this here. People want to put Kyrie in the elite faction of all players. That's really what it comes down to, right? Like I had an argument that Kyrie has had a better career than James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And I say absolutely fucking not. Like not even close. What are we talking about? Kyrie has never been the best player on a team to be a title contender. Never. Not even close. The closest thing to happen is when he was in Boston and Tatum was still a neophyte and they were a top seed. He flamed out and was horrible in the playoffs, right? And he's flamed out every year since or hasn't been healthy to play in the playoffs. So that part of it bothers me, right? Like you cannot put him in the James Harden category. You can't put him, and I'm not even a Russell Westbrook guy. You can't put him in the Russell Westbrook category over the last 20 years, let alone Stephen Curry. He hasn't even done what Dame has done as a number one on a playoff team. And Dame hasn't done much, right? So that's just point guards really for the most part right there. But I think you get my point on the Kyrie stuff there. Like besides the flame out, he's not a number one. He doesn't have to be now with Luka. Some of their numbers are fantastic. I would have probably taken Dallas if it wasn't for LeBron. But like, yeah, Kyrie worries me.
Yeah, you're right though. If your argument is pro Kyrie, it has to be what his talent is and almost what he could be more than what his career has been. Because it was 2016 when he had that incredible 3-game stretch with LeBron to seal the NBA Finals, and since then it's been.
And I'm not trying to rewrite history and say that he's a scrub because he's obviously not. He's fucking off the charts.
Yeah.
He's so incredible, right? But if LeBron don't go back to Cleveland, does he play a relevant playoff game for the first 8 years of his career?
Yeah. And then was he considered without that? I don't like saying that. I'll never say without that. So I'm going to take that off the table. But
I didn't want to say it, but I said it anyway.
Yeah. I've made way too many Eli Manning arguments where people say something like, well, what would he be without those 2 rings? I'm like, well, without those 8 playoff wins you're talking about? Like, yeah, that's a great point. What if my grandmother had wheels? She'd be a bicycle, right? That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite clips on Instagram and Twitter I've ever seen.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, let me recap this, Cody, and so we can go to bed. You have your 5 picks here: Nuggets, Bucks, OKC, Knicks, and Heat. I have with my 5 picks: Celtics, Clippers, Suns, Timberwolves, and Lakers. How do you feel you did? You think you took this?
I love my team. I do. But, it only takes one to be the winner of this, right? So if Boston pulls through, imagine we have 10 picks, a third of the league, and we miss them all.
All right, let's do this. Let's do a wild card. We have to say it at the same time. All right?
All right, I'm ready.
Team that we didn't pick to win the title.
I'm taking Dallas out too because I already talked about them.
Okay, ready? You ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Cleveland.
Pelicans.
Ooh, all right.
All right, perfect. We didn't say the same one. So our wild card, if none of these teams win the championship, yours is Cleveland and mine is New Orleans. There we go.
Love it.
All right. How about it? I watch now the Warriors. The Warriors make the trade of the century and go on a run. Oh. Imagine. That'd be insane. All right. Cody O'Connor. We shot for 30, expected 45, and ended at an hour.
Take the over every single time.
I expect nothing less. Cody O'Connor, everybody. Appreciate you as always. Pete Kennedy here. Subway Sports Talk. Don't forget to subscribe and review on your podcast app. Hit us on social media at Subway Sports Talk. I'll try to cook up a graphic for this. I feel like this could get the people going a little bit on the social medias on our Contenders draft. Go Knicks. What a time to be a Knicks fan. We'll be back next week, Cody. Super Bowl week. Oh, my God.
Wow.
The Super Bowl. I love this week between the Super Bowl or like the Pro Bowl week, really, because I don't think about football for 1 second, and it's kind of nice. I get a little refresh, Next week, we hit the ground running with our picks, props, and parlays podcast that'll come out probably, I would say probably Friday, but maybe we'll get it out early. We'll do it on Thursday to really live and sit with that Super Bowl stuff for next week. But all right, that's all we got. Cody O'Connor, Pete Kennedy. Talk to you soon. Cheers.